Keith Thurman versus Errol Spence at 154. And here in this video, we're going to be taking a look at what I believe are going to be the most significant sequences and the things we really want to be paying attention to. Now, right off the bat, Errol Spence likes to come forward. He's going to control the line up here at the top, give him a feint, go to the body. And this is one of the ways that Errol Spence gets his opponent to interact with him. Okay. Now notice the position of Danny Garcia's hands here when the body shot starts coming. That opens up space to attack him up top later. All right, this is going to be very, very important. Later, here, jab to the head, control the space, and right hand or left hand to the head. Now this, he usually will throw a shot. We're going to take a look at a sequence right here. Coming here, jab, 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 and he goes to a body shot here. He does get countered here, and we're going to talk about this later. But sequences like this where he jabs to the head and then goes to the body here create holes for Errol Spence to find offense with punches like this, where he can change the direction of the punch. Instead of going to the body when he goes down, he can go to the head. And it's very important to understand that this is one of the only ways that Errol Spence can get his offense going against an opponent that just keeps his hands up. Okay, if you have a tightish guard, because of the fact that Errol Spence doesn't change positions, he can't really throw his rear hand very much unless he controls the space with his jab first, okay? Because he can't really change positions and just explode into it. Not that exploding into it is good, but he explodes enough into his jab, right? It's the same thing. So, again, coming in here, jab from the front foot toward the back foot, crouching, throwing the left hand to the body, and Danny Garcia doing an okay job interacting with that punch. But Errol Spence makes a huge flaw, a huge mistake, okay? And this is something that he does a lot of, but he tries to get back to this boxing stance here, okay? And again, he's always trying to be in this stance because he doesn't fight in positions, okay? Now, real quick, if you guys want to check out the Fouts Boxing Combat System and you want to learn how to fight in what I call position 1 and position 2 on the front foot and the back foot, check it out. Also, if you want to learn everything there is to learn about power punching, if you want to learn how to generate power, how power really works, and how any person on the planet can have punching power, okay? Check it out. Learn all about my theory of 2-foot punching and how it works with training and this and that and all this cool stuff. And also learn how to leave the line in a drill, what I call the track, without having to cross your opponent's line and put yourself in danger to their power punches. Okay, it's one huge flaw that Errol Spence has, and this fight may be enough to make him pay for it. Keith Thurman is a pretty strong guy, pretty big guy, and he's going to be pretty jacked for this fight, especially if it's at 154. Now, again, because of the fact that Errol Spence does not have a very active guard, right? He's got his hands up here. Because he doesn't really have any head movement and he only jabs, he has to find interesting and clever ways to get on the line with his opponent. And in this sequence, he does that. As he moves to the line, he gets controlled here, and then he immediately explodes into a jab because Danny Garcia's left hand was just occupied the beat before, and he's able to use that punch, boom, to start setting up other punches, all right? Now, again, this is a very, very, very important timing for Errol Spence, and it's one of the few places that he can find offense, again, because he doesn't move his head. Again, same punch, right? The control comes from Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia gets followed back and punched in the face. No big deal. Now, this sequence is really interesting, okay? Probing right hand from Garcia, and now he's going to throw a hard body shot to Errol Spence, and now he's going to throw another hard right hand at Errol Spence. And this is 3 straight right hands in a row, okay? No counter punches, no head movement, nothing. He just allows Danny Garcia to throw that punch at him. And I think that this is very, very, very bad for him. Again, Errol Spence is not really a counterpuncher, right? He does that thing on the jab that I just showed you, but look how he's not able to do that off of the rear hand from his opponent here, okay? But also, he just doesn't counterpunch a lot. Again, very likely because he just doesn't move his head. Coming forward with the 1-1-2. Lands the shot, the right hand, or the left hand. Beautiful. And then again, making the same mistake of crossing the line and trying to get back to his boxing stance and not working out of his positions. Not being able to fight from here, but having to leave that position, not even getting his hand up after making an attack. Just a huge hole for him. Okay? And again, I want to point out, control, lands that shot around the guard. Errol Spence is not a power puncher. Okay? If you land this kind of shot on a guy that clean, you should be dropping him, not getting countered with an even harder shot. Okay? And again, I think this is a very, very dangerous place for Errol Spence to be, especially because as we start watching Keith Thurman loves to counter. So right off the bat, here he goes, jab to the body, and Keith Thurman jumps onto his line and tries to hit him with the rear hand. Boom. Jab to the body. Okay, I got you. Follow him back. Body shot. Excellent shot from Keith Thurman. Very, very, very high value attack off of a very common source of offense for Errol Spence. Now, this is one of the bad things about Thurman, okay? Very low active guard here. Control. No head movement. Where's the rear hand probes? Well, we're going to see some rear hand probes. But on average, this is the Keith Thurman that we're looking at. Okay, someone who's just kind of sitting on the line, waiting, chilling. Now, this is beautiful. Keith Thurman jumps on the line here, boom. And instead of throwing a jab, right, like most people get on the line with a jab, they immediately control them. He blasts into a rear hand, okay, smashes Guerrero in the face. He does get countered, but then counters that with a liver shot, beautiful. Misses that shot, gets off the line, and counters again. This is going to be very difficult, I believe, for Errol Spence, because as we saw Danny Garcia through the rear hand probe, and it was slow, it wasn't, it was not a great shot. And Errol Spence didn't look to counter or interact with it at all. And on the flip side, we have Keith Thurman throwing really fast, really hard, snappy shots, and then following those up with other counters as well. Now again, rear hand probe from Keith Thurman, right? I do think he gets kind of countered here. But this is not an attack, I think, that Errol Spence has very many defenses for. I think that usually, because he's not really a counterpuncher, and we're going to talk about a sequence later that kind of talks about that idea. Again, this is something I think that Keith Thurman is very good at here. Okay, so as he gets on the line with this guy, feinting, control, jumps on his line, control. He has not exploded yet, but he's getting a lot of information, a lot of stuff. And here, Guerrero comes in with the body shot off of Keith Thurman's feinting and probing and moves off the line, and he's countering him. Okay? I do believe that Keith Thurman has shown that he can move off the line and still interact with you enough in some of these sequences. We're going to take a look at some better ones as well. Jumping on the line, boom, pushes him off the line. And now, say he jumps on the line. Now we've seen he's thrown the rear hand probe, and now he's feinting the rear hand probe, and then moving off the line and countering his opponent. If Keith Thurman can do this to his opponent's left hand, I believe that he'll be able to do that to his opponent's jab as well. Excuse me, guys. But if Errol Spence tries to follow Keith Thurman back off the jab, I think Keith Thurman has demonstrated enough here that he may be able to still be able to interact with it, right? Interact with Errol Spence's following jab, interact with Spence's normal jab, and it may put Keith Thurman at a significant advantage. Very classic, very easy. Control the line here. Shoot the jab to the body. It will be a significant source of offense. Now again, catch, jab, very, very similar to what Errol Spence was doing to Danny Garcia. Catch, catch, counter, right? Again, very, very similar, and it makes me believe that strategy that Errol Spence has, Keith Thurman's already going to understand what he's doing, and he's going to be able to fight off of that. Very similar to how he jumps on the line, gets him to interact and follow him back, and he takes a step back and counters Guerrero in one of those previous sequences. Now, as Guerrero comes forward, he gets this punch blocked here. Boom. Keith Thurman's blocking it, and then Keith Thurman's countering him. If Keith Thurman can use this sequence here, a very similar one, right? Maybe catch the jab and then counter with the hook. Maybe block the jab, counter with the straight punch or whatever. Guerrero's trying to get lead foot dominance here. And because he gets interacted with, boom, boom, he doesn't wind up getting any offense off once he gets into the position. Errol Spence is not a counterpuncher, okay? And because of that, I don't think he gets to train all of those kinds of things that you would be doing when you're trying to be a counterpuncher. And I think that makes him very hesitant if you interact with him on the line, where if you try to interrupt his sequence, oftentimes he'll shell up. And I think that if Keith Thurman can keep Errol Spence occupied, right, controlling him, and obviously you don't want to tire yourself out. You have to do it in all that good ways. He may be able to stop him from just jumping on this line and beating the dog shit out of him, because of the hesitancy of Errol Spence. Now, again, Keith Thurman getting on the line, probe, and then blasting with that straight right. Again, I think that's going to be a very, very common move for him and a very, very high level amount of offense for him. Now, we have these last few clips to take a look at. Okay. Errol Spence constantly crossing back over the line and getting countered here in this Danny Garcia fight. This happened in the first 3 rounds maybe a dozen times, 24 times. It just happened a ton of times. Keith Thurman is faster. Keith Thurman hits harder. Okay? Keith Thurman is still going to have to predict whether it's a headshot or a body shot before he gets into the countering position. But I do think that Keith Thurman is going to be better at this, and this is a huge flaw to still have when you're this deep in your career. And one of the big problems with this flaw is that if you're fighting little guys, no offense to Danny Garcia, to be honest, I really think Danny Garcia could have gotten the job done. But these kinds of flaws that get you hit clean, they get you stuck, they get you making very basic, very basic mistakes. You always pay for those against the power punchers. And I haven't been following Spence's career that closely. I mean, I have in the last 4 years or 5 years. Since the Brook fight, that's when I started really watching Errol Spence. But I don't know how many power punchers he's ever fought. I know that Danny Garcia hurts him. Mikey Garcia hurt him. Ugas hurt him. Now, almost everybody hurt Floyd Mayweather too, right? But anyway, I think that the strategies that Errol Spence has available to him, they may be bigger. It may be even worse for Keith Thurman because this fight's at 154 and not 147. And that may be one of the biggest factors in deciding who wins this fight because obviously being at 154 favors Errol Spence, right? Keith Thurman is probably a much better welterweight than he is super middleweight or super welterweight or junior middleweight. But oh my God, my throat's killing me, guys. Anyway, neither one of them have been very active in the last few years. Very, very few fights. As long as Keith Thurman still has his power, I think I'm going to be picking Keith Thurman to win this fight. Again, I think that he's going to be able to take away a lot of Errol Spence's offense. As Errol Spence doesn't really move his head. He doesn't like being punched at. A guy who doesn't like being punched at and can't move his head. I don't know. Anyway, it's going to be a good fight. I can't wait to see what Errol Spence looks like at 154. And how jacked of a dude Keith Thurman looks like at 154, because he's already looks insane at 147. But yeah, I think a lot of the sequences are going to favor Keith Thurman, especially early. We'll see if he fades, and then Errol Spence can come on late. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Keith Thurman. Yeah. Anyway, don't forget to like and subscribe. Whatever. I don't really care that much. Check out the Fouts Boxing Combat System, though. It'll change everything you think you know about boxing.